Hey guys, welcome to the channel. So I want to talk about Vivek Ramaswamy for just a moment. So I feel like he's an impressive individual, and I think he's doing a lot of impressive things. And there's no doubt he's outpacing a lot of the GOP candidates and some serious old school names, governors and things like that. Let me know in the comments if you think it's because he's that talented, or is it because the GOP candidates, they're not at top of their game and we don't want them. We probably never wanted them. I think it's a mixture of both, and guys, before I go any further, thanks to everyone that's been subscribing and leaving such great comments. I try to get to all of them, but really, I really appreciate the support. We're growing pretty fast, but if you haven't already, please help us with the algorithm. Please like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, share the channel. Every time you do, a leftist loses their wings. So anyway, Vivek, he is a super talented dude. And let's be real, some of the GOP actions, they leave room for a guy like him to completely and totally shine, even when he's up against traditional politicians like senators or governors and all this stuff. His instincts, they seem to be pretty top notch from what I've seen. And one thing I've seen of him lately, so Ramaswamy, he's making waves by asking for the release of the manifesto related to that tragic Christian school shooting in Nashville. That's one of the many things I like about him. Other politicians, they wouldn't touch this with a 10-foot pole, because all they really care about is winning and looking good and all that stuff. But the guy really cares about this issue. And some people that we really like are supporting him. Candace Owens, to name one. And all he's pushing for is transparency. The idea that, maybe by understanding these events, we can, maybe it's crazy to think this, but maybe we can prevent them in the future. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of that. And let's have a look at what he's got to say.
I'm here as a father and as an American. We can't fix the past, but we can prevent tragedies in the future. And the only way to do it is to learn from those mistakes of the past. When an airplane crashes, we recover the black box for a reason. We never want to make that same mistake twice. We have a tradition in this country as law enforcement to do the same thing when there's a mass shooting. It is a long-standing tradition of law enforcement in the United States of America to, when it is recovered, release the manifesto of the shooter. We have to learn from tragedy to prevent it in the future. The manifesto of the killer was made public in each of the following instances: Allen, Texas; Buffalo, New York; Charleston, South Carolina; Isla Vista, California; Monterey Park, California; Poway, California. In all cases, within 48 hours of the tragedy. The public demanded the same happen here in Nashville immediately after the tragedy in March. In fact, the National Police Association has since sued city officials and county officials demanding the same. It turned out that on April 27th, Governor Bill Lee, the governor of this state, pledged to release that manifesto. Yet today we're sitting here in August with nothing other than stonewalled silence from our government. That is wrong. That does not build public trust. That erodes public trust. I'm here today to make a demand of the governor of Tennessee, to make a demand of the Nashville Police Department, to make a demand of the FBI. Release the manifesto. Speak the truth. The hard times are the times where we must most openly speak that truth. It is hardest to speak the truth under difficult circumstances, but that is when we require it the most. I understand that there are legitimate concerns, that we do not want details released that will motivate copycats. I don't want that. The fellow Americans who earnestly have called for the release of this manifesto, they don't want that either. And I want to go on record and say it would be perfectly reasonable for the police to redact any sections of this manifesto that lay out specific plans, that lay out specific premeditated plots on details of execution that could be copied by another individual. But what we do need to know is this killer's motive.
So yeah, man, so just in the spirit of full transparency, I'm with him. The manifesto should be out in the open. Understanding the why behind such actions, it only can help us move forward, right? And even more than that, we all know that there's got to be politics at play here. If this was some right-wing crazy, for one thing, Trump would have already been indicted for it. And for another, it would still be played on a daily loop. But it's someone from the left. So it's swept under the rug because it just doesn't fit the narrative. Is that it? I mean, it's got to be it, or is there something deeper than that? I don't know. Are authorities actually worried about this particular subculture? Do they think that the release of this would inspire copycats? And I'm curious about all that, but there's got to be a way to manage that. And Vivek pointed out that in previous cases, the manifesto and motives behind all these mass shootings, they're public almost instantly. The only ones I can think of are this one and the Las Vegas one. And that's still shrouded in secrecy. I'm really not sure why, but we're all left guessing, why that is. Why is that the case here? And now there's a clip coming out from News Nation discussing how, maybe it's not just the authorities, but also a lot of parents from the affected school, these Christian kids, maybe they don't want to release the document, which honestly, I got to say, I find super confusing. I don't know if this is, some denial maybe they're having. I don't know, because let's be real. If the motive behind this, doesn't align with certain narratives we often see in the mainstream media, I think that that's probably a pretty big factor in keeping it under wraps. But let's see what these guys have to say.
Debate has raged over a manifesto that police say they recovered. It was written by the shooter, Audrey Hale. Police have still not made that manifesto public, and some of the victims' families don't ever want the manifesto released, saying it would inspire copycats. Others, however, are calling for full transparency, including a presidential candidate who today called for its release. Joining us now, live from Nashville, is News Nation investigative correspondent Rich McHugh. Why is a candidate for president getting involved in this, Rich?
That's a good question. He sure jumped right into the heart of this debate, Elizabeth. He slammed officials for hiding the documents. He said Americans need the unvarnished truth, that we need to learn from this disaster and move forward.
Release the manifesto. Speak the truth.
Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy called on the Nashville Metro Police, the FBI, and others today to release the writings of the Nashville shooter, who took 6 innocent lives at this Christian school here in March.
The best we can do to move forward is to discover exactly what happened so that we may hope and we may pray and we may do our part to make sure that something like this never happens again.
That evening in March, Nashville police told News Nation they were hoping to release redacted portions of a manifesto left behind, and this, the chilling footage of the shooter entering the school and moving down the school corridors. By the next morning, they released the police body cam footage.
Go, 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 go.
And said despite the writings they found from the shooter, they had not determined a motive.
It's quite a bit of writing to it. I have not read the entire manifesto. Our team and the FBI has been working on this.
Then Nashville police pivoted and said they would not release the manifesto. And ever since, there's been intense debate over why the police haven't released it, including whether it has to do with the fact that the shooter identified as transgender. A number of lawsuits have now been filed to force the police to release the documents. But then the parents of the victims weighed in a legal brief and said they do not want the shooter's manifesto released. Now it's important to say that not all the victims' families feel the same way. The brother of Mike Hill, who was killed in the attack, had this to say. He's in favor of releasing it. For me personally, not knowing the shooter's true motives leaves a large void in my heart and in my brother's story. I reached out to Metro Police earlier today, and they told me they're waiting for a court to instruct them how to proceed. That court resumes on this topic in the courthouse behind me at the end of this month, Elizabeth.
All right, so let's unpack this just a little bit. So I get why some parents would be hesitant to release the manifesto. But honestly, when you look at it, yes, they suffered a great deal, but this kind of stuff is not really their choice. They don't get to decide, what we know and what we think we can use to stop something like this. Nobody wants a copycat situation. Nobody wants anyone to relive that kind of trauma, and I'm sure that it would detail some really, really disturbing things, but there's still a need for the public to understand what happened and why. The motives of horrific acts have got to be known. I agree that there's got to be a way to present this, whatever is in there, without inspiring any other violence. After all, how can we create effective policies or address the Democrats' favorite word, root causes, if we're in the dark of what actually happened and why? And obviously, I'm not speculating here. I don't want to speculate here, but there might be a chance that certain narratives in the mainstream media actually maybe even played a role in this happening. Could that be the case? Are they covering up for themselves? I don't know. But if that's the case, then, those spreading those messages, they should be held accountable. They should lose their jobs at least. And if we don't get to the root issue, we're going to oversimplify the solution. Just like focusing on gun control without addressing deep societal problems that lead to gun violence. It's like trying to treat symptoms without addressing a disease, which doctors do. They treat the symptoms and let the disease flourish. And that's just not the way to go. And Vivek, he's been vocal on this. And it's impressive to see someone tackle this pretty much head on. There's a million things a presidential candidate can talk about, but I think it's impressive to see this, especially when it seems like so many are content to just let this fade away, let people forget about it until it happens again, because these things always happen again, But anyway, he's clearly making some waves, whether you attribute it to him being a really savvy guy or his shortcomings in the GOP, I don't know, or maybe a mix, but he's drawn attention to something pretty crucial, I think. Mass shootings, regardless of the perpetrator and what their background is, they're tragedies, and they've got to be fully understood. In a society like ours, man, we deserve to see what's going on. We deserve a full picture. And every still unprotected child in every single school deserves a full picture, not just some media spun version of what they want us to think happened. And the better we understand these motives and these events, the better we can provide prevention. The better we can have policy decisions made. Because let's be real, man, guns aren't going anywhere. Even if for some magic thing happened and they figured it all out, it would be decades before we were, like Australia had done and, basically become almost gun free. That's what the leftists here fantasize about. But as you see, their fantasies, they stay fantasies. I believe that we got to protect the kids we have now and let these rhinos and leftists keep arguing about guns for the next 50 freaking years for all I care. I don't care. But kids need to be protected now. Anyway, that's just my take, guys. Let me know yours in the comments. And let me know, what you think. While still being sensitive to the victims and their families, how can we get this information out? Comment below. Let's keep the conversation going. And guys, please don't forget to like, subscribe. Most importantly, share the Common Sense Garage. We'll see you in the next one.